All right, so welcome everybody to our first ISO podcast, episode 001, appropriately. This is intended to be a very informal conversation among friends, ISO admins. I'm Jason White. You may recognize my voice as one of the play-by-play announcers, and sometimes I drive cars and occasionally finish in the points. Other people on this podcast today, we have Alberto Ibañez. Alberto.
Good evening, everybody. You might also know my voice already. It's not really the nicest one, but it's the one I have, so I will stick to it. And as you might already know, I'm from Spain. My full name is Alberto Ibañez, and I live in Valencia. That's a city on the east coast of Spain. And there's the place where I live, where I raise, where I work, where I have my family. I'm married and I have two wonderful kids. One of them is also racing with us, as you all might already know, little Lal, even if he's racing with a different family name, but that's a bit like Nelson Piquet, that would be a bit like weird to have two people with the same name in the in the same forum. So he uses his mother name for racing. I'm a big enthusiast of sim racing, a big enthusiast of modding, because as you know, I'm also very busy with the modding part of this league. And I'm absolutely delighted to be here again. We will be having today a nice conversation. That's one that we have been having in TeamSpeak all the time. And we decided at some point to start recording it. So here we go.
We're also joined by another of our play-by-play announcers, Johnny Aces, Jonatan Acerclinth.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jonatan Acerclinth. You will, as Jason has mentioned, recognize my voice from the USAC and Oval series play-by-play announcing and my usual lack of good words to use.
Oh, come on. What about oh, dearie me? Everyone always waits for that.
Yeah, fair enough. Dearie me and I'm a whoosive accident, I think, is my catchphrases. I live in Sweden, in Dalarna, which is more or less in the central area of Sweden. According to figures I just checked, it's 285,000 people in my county, so you can compare the lack of people here with where you yourself live who are listening. I'm especially interested in touring cars, both watching and racing. I also do some real-life racing in Folk Race, which is a cheaper version of Rallycross. Otherwise, the rules and stuff is pretty much the same. I'm a teacher by trade, technically a substitute teacher, and mainly enjoy sim racing because it gives me an opportunity that I otherwise probably wouldn't get to drive many great and fantastic cars, of which many we here at ISO have created ourselves.
And the fourth person that's joining us in this podcast is Juha Boss.
Good evening. I'm Juha Boss. I live in Belgium, about 1 hour east of Brussels. My main activity at ISO is setting up the races and keeping track of the forum threads. I'll leave the modding and other work to the rest of my friends on here. My main interest in racing is the history around it. I quite enjoy reading about 60s and 70s and 80s. I'm a bit less interested in racing as it is today. What I like about ISO is I can actually drive the cars I will never have the chance to see or hear in real life.
Yeah, I guess I skipped over myself at the start there, but myself, I live in Ferndale, Michigan, in the United States. I formerly was a automobile designer working in the Detroit area, and now I'm a professor at a design school. I enjoy working with sims and modding because I enjoy history a lot. History was my favorite subject in high school. I don't know. I just like recreating stuff that I like you guys are saying that you didn't get a chance to see in real life. But it's important that that's what drives me, at least personally, because driving skill aside, that's the thing that I love to do in this league is to create. And the cherry on top, at least as far as I'm concerned, is that you get to drive the car in the end. So But today is intended to be just more or less an introduction to us as a group. We don't have everybody on our team here. There are notable people missing, such as Richard Coxon, who I believe is still waiting on a new computer. Is that right?
Yeah, he still
he
is.
has
Yes,
got-
should arrive this week. He's
Oh, that's
building it,
good.
I think.
He has his new computer, but he's still configuring it. So, but he will be back on track with us very soon, because I think from next week on he will be ready on that front.
Yeah, I was under the impression that he just had a graphics card that had gone south, but it sounds like he needed an entire new rig. Which
Yeah,
is,
it was getting a bit old, so he decided to replace the whole thing.
okay. Well, that's good. I mean, it's not something that you spend money on every day, so hopefully it'll last him a long time. So as far as our day-to-day operations of ISO, some of you know us from another league prior to our moving over to this one. But in general, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we're responsible for. I mean, obviously, the most visible thing are the broadcasts where we show the races as they occur and give commentary on them. But there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I'll start with myself. A lot of what I do behind the scenes these days is maintaining the forum in a couple of situations. If you notice in the forum, you'll see that we're moderators for certain series. Alberto and myself are designated the moderators for USAC 74. So I'll make sure the points table is up to date. I'll make sure the cars are allocated properly. We build threads for races, make sure the server's running properly, things of that nature. So a lot of just housekeeping stuff. But we also, or myself particular, I'm chipping in these days on a few small projects that we're working on for next year. Oh, there's a horn. We're gonna have to capture that for a drop later. Apart from that, I'm also apart from that, that's mainly what I'm working on right now. Occasionally, I'll model something, but it's difficult for me to work on much else besides that. The other big contribution, obviously, is the broadcasts. I enjoy that a lot. Apart from drivers, I really have a lot of appreciation for people who are good broadcasters. So I try my best to do like they do. But that's what I do behind the scenes. How about you, Alberto? What can you say about your behind the scenes contributions?
Well, there's, I think, quite a big list. I'm not going to say that I'm the one who does more, but I mean, I'm the kind of person who knows a bit about everything and is not really an expert in anything specific. But yeah, I'm all over the place doing many things. So I do also a bit of forum maintenance. I do a bit of modding. Because as you have seen, I'm being responsible for doing some new tracks. I've been also responsible partly for the physics. I'm not obviously in the same level as our physics guru and maestro Richard Wilkes, who is also missing today here, but will be in future podcasts. And I also do, broadcast, as you very well know already, because you've heard my voice. It's, as you said, Jason, it's really fun. I mean, I enjoy doing those broadcasts, but man, talking in what is not your mother tongue is really, really challenging.
Yeah, I gotta say I'm blissfully unaware of how difficult that is. I occasionally have to remind myself, Jason, it's their second language, so but you guys speak it so well just conversationally. But yeah, I suppose it's like juggling. You add one more thing that you have to keep track of, and next thing you know, it suddenly becomes difficult. So yeah.
Yeah, well, when you're married and with two kids and have a job, I mean, it's just one thing more.
Yeah, I suppose that's true too. Um, so Jonatan, behind the scenes, actually, you were principally responsible for organizing the series that just concluded, right? The ASTC.
Yeah, me along with Juha and
Yes.
Richard Coxon were behind that series. Richard did most of the skins, I believe, along with another member of our team that isn't here at the moment, David Saber, who does the main bulk of the modeling work, I believe, in
Yeah.
our group, and he does an amazing job at it, I must say. But me and Juha have mainly sorted out a forum, made sure the events have run as smoothly as possible, tried to keep everyone as happy as possible, and Yeah, that's mainly what I've been doing. I also obviously do the broadcast for the oval races. Partly due to me really enjoying doing the broadcasting. It's one of those that's just as enjoyable to broadcast as it is to race. I'm fortunate enough in the English language that we in Sweden get quite a good education in it. And obviously, sim racing is mainly English based in terms of text and speech. So I've sort of grown to have English as more or less just switch between Swedish and English without any really thinking about it. Me and Anders do that a lot when we're on TeamSpeak. Yeah, behind the scenes, apart from that, I don't really do much. I must sadly admit. Whenever there's a need, I will try to help out with like skins, liveries, testing. But often we have our testers already doing the bulk of that. And Richard and David Saber does such a good job that skinning usually isn't a main problem either. So I mainly help out with the forums and keep it all up to date and try to keep contact with the users via PM or otherwise just to try and keep them up to date and like communicate what we want them to know.
Yeah, the one member who's of the team whose name has been mentioned twice, who's not here, but definitely his presence is felt in everything that we work on. David Saber. One of the things that attracts people to this league and our work is that a lot of what we have is stuff that you can't find anywhere else, and a great deal of the credit for that goes to David Saber. David Saber is responsible for most of the modeling work that you see in the cars. I mean, in some cases, we have mods that have been updated that are other people's mods. A good example of that would be the F191 mod, which started out as an F1SR mod. But when you look at like USAC mods, some other open wheel mods that have been done, David is very much involved in those and does a lot of the modeling from scratch. I think you guys would agree that if we didn't have David behind the scenes, none of this would happen from a
No,
graphics
that's for
point of
sure.
view.
That's
Yeah.
for sure. And he's very talented, and he's been creating content for video games like for ages. Because I know when I was new to sim racing, I already could find and download modes created by Dave ST, as he was known. That was his nick back then when we were in, I think it was No Grip Racing and websites of the like, and there was already a lot of contents by him, and it's when you start looking at that, you would first think, man, this is a group of modders. No, it's not. It's a single person, and it's pumping out mod after mod after mod with incredible quality. And well, it's like a bottomless well, because he's one of those ultra productive guys that he's continuously creating things, and he has a special love for the 70s, but also for some more modern series. But he has done incredible, amazing modeling with, for example, Formula One of the 70s, Can-Am, all these user cars that he created. I remember, Jason, when we were doing this mod, you were basically it got you started with the Eagle 72. You got the scale model, I think was 118 scale. It was a Vukovic car, right?
I think it
That
was
yellow
one.
one.
Yeah, it was a yellow one made by Carousel. The basic genesis of the whole USAC series of vehicles. It started in the mod started life in R Factor 1, and thanks to many people here and other people that we don't have here, it made its way over to AMS. But when I started modeling it, I've as a car designer, I know how to model things in a vector format. But there were intricacies about making a mod for a game that I wasn't aware of. So I basically all of like for the USAC 73 ones, most of what you see there was modeled originally in Alias by myself, and that would be the vehicle as it appears closest to you. But a lot of the finite details, suspension parts, all these things, and how the vehicle appears when it's sort of far away from you and then very far away from you, all of that work was David's. And
Yeah, and I
without that
remember
work,
he also added lots of cars that were like
yeah.
oddballs and things
Mhm.
like that. He was, well, but this was all just to talk about David, about his qualities as a modeler and that, because he also does a lot of work on the tracks. He is currently updating all the Formula One tracks for the 91 season for us. So yeah, it's I mean that's the biggest chunk of the exclusive content, at least in the graphics part. And then the other part, the other half, let's say, of the exclusive contents is probably Richard Wilkes with his amazing physics that he has been ever improving. And well, that's, as you say, well, what basically distinguishes us as a different league.
Yeah, it's you can have cars that drive beautifully in the game, but if they look terrible, no one's going to be too enthusiastic about it. And conversely, if you have cars that look fantastic and don't drive accurately, no one's going to be enthusiastic about that either. So you need, it's like a symphony orchestra. You need woodwinds, percussion, strings, all these different elements to make it work well. And I think that's part of why we work as a team, if I can be so bold. That each of us fill in certain things. I remember when we met Richard Wilkes originally, part of what drew us to him was that he knew how to make sounds really well, and none of us did. and we didn't even realize that we were also getting somebody involved with us that was a physics guru at the same time. So we got way more than we thought we were getting.
Yeah, he was actually starting with that at that point, but I remember he had done some sound mods in No Grip Racing, so I invited him to come over and join the team. And well, ever since then, he's been here, and he's now a fundamental because we're a core. We were joking about that before starting the podcast. We were saying that we're four of us are here now, but we're not the four musketeers. We're actually the Magnificent Seven, so to speak.
Yeah, it's more like a team of seven, to be honest. The other thing that's notable about this, I mean, a lot of people, they know each other online and they speak to each other on TeamSpeak, for example, but they've never actually met each other. I can say quite proudly that I've met Alberto twice. I've met Richard Wilkes before and Richard Coxon before. I have not yet actually seen Jonatan or Juha in the flesh, but hopefully that we can take care of that sometime down the road.
I'm sure it'll happen someday.
At some point, but it's we have the added bonus of a lot of us have looked each other in the eye and shared a drink, and it's more than just random people that you meet online. I mean, this is a group of people working together that genuinely have respect for each other's abilities. We're very passionate about what we believe in. Sometimes we get into disagreements. Other times we're very much in agreement on things, but there's a family aspect to a lot of what we do, I think.
Yeah, there is. That's for sure. And getting to know yourself in real life is also part of it. Having even lived together, because you stayed with us for a week here in Valencia, and that was wonderful. And I also visited Richard Wilkes in Portugal. We had a really good time there. And like you, I'm really hoping to be able to travel to Belgium and maybe also to Sweden one day. Belgium for sure, because I know I have many interesting histories, same as you. And one of them is about World War One, World War Two, and all that. And well, Belgium was, unfortunately for the Belgians, a lot of mostly a big battlefield back then.
We
in
were
Europe
the
in
neighbor's
40s.
playground twice.
Yeah, sounds about right. One other thing that I don't think that you had delved too much into, but you actually are a rally driver in real life, are you not?
I'm the co-driver. I leave the wheel to more capable people.
Oh, so you clipboard it.
But you are then the most courageous guy in the car.
Yes, because I sit and I have to put my faith into someone else. And they usually do a pretty good job, so I'm still in one piece. And I hope to keep it that way.
Did COVID get in the way of you doing anything like that in the next few months? I would think it did.
Yes, it did, because we've had 2 events cancelled. Normally the championship is 9 rounds. Championship I do. 2 have been cancelled and 3 have been postponed. That's good, because otherwise we'd lost them. So we still got 7 rounds left.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of being halfway through the series, we've only done 1 round. We've got everything to do in the last 3 months of the year. That's going to be very interesting.
Well, hopefully that gets back on track, because I know you're really passionate about that. And
No, I'm sure it will.
yeah,
But, well, health is more important this stage, so
yeah, no question.
it's always next year.
Jonathan, has folk racing taken a hit from COVID?
Yes, it has. This year has been quite lackluster. I've had one event that I could partake in. I believe there's been a total of 3 in this part of Sweden, and other than that, they've either been postponed or put on hold or like cancelled altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Jonathan, just to round up your mention of folk racing, can you explain what car are you actually racing there?
Yes, of course. I'm currently racing a Golf 1, a 19, I believe it's a 78 model. It's a 1.6 liter engine with a slightly sharpened cam. So it produces about 135, 140 horsepower in a car that weighs probably scraping just over 500 kilos with me as a passenger. Front-wheel drive, quite small compared to some of the other cars like the Volvos and the Opel Kadetts and Asconas, but really good fun.
Yeah, so it
Oh.
seems. Do you do all the maintenance yourself?
Yes, more or less. Sometimes I have my father or brother come along and help me out a little bit, but often it's maintenance on your own, like fill up fuel, fill up oil, change drive shafts or whatever breaks on the car, and occasionally get help from others. If usually when if you end up in a final or semi-final, you can have the luck of other people that haven't gotten through. You can, if you lack a part, for example, you can like ask around, and someone will at least provide you a part for a cheap amount of money, and you can fix the car up. So
Okay, so
very
I
much
think
a
that's
friendly community thing.
yeah. So I think this wraps up more or less the introduction of ourselves. We've talked enough about this, and I think it should be the proper moment to talk a bit more about this podcast that we are starting nowadays.
Yeah.
So, what's this podcast about? So, first of all, I should say, I think we already mentioned it, that the idea basically came up while we were talking in TeamSpeak. As Jason already said, we are a team, but not just that, we are a group of friends, and we have been talking a lot over TeamSpeak. We have a private channel here, an admin channel, where we come and quickly can have a talk about any issue that arises. Because if you already probably have seen the forum maintenance, the league running and all that, it takes a big amount of work, I can tell you. I cannot count the issues that we have had, like servers falling, and need to update this thread, deal with any request or question from members and anything like that, and coordinating that, acting together as a group, with a single voice, and not telling one member one thing and another member a different one. That really takes a lot of coordination. That's what we do in TeamSpeak. And at some point, we really said, look, many of the talks that we're having here, like the ones I have with Wilkes about physics, with Jason about history, or Juha and Jonatan about the racing, the folk racing, the rallies, and all that, we really should bring that to people, to the ones that are following us, because we know that we have some loyal followers in the broadcast, and in general in the league. We should really let people know what goes through our minds, all the things that we are thinking, all the things that we want to achieve with this league, with the mods that we do, with all the ambience that we are trying to create here in this great community that we are building up, because we have some really nice people here, some racers, many who also drop by at TeamSpeak. So it's not just people who you race against. It's not just us as a group of admins. There are so many more people around, and we are developing as a big community, that we thought, let's say we bring these conversations to the people, and we decided to start recording them in the way of podcast, because it's really not formal. We're not doing here a radio program, an interview, anything like that. It's a podcast where we will be talking about many things that go through our minds. We will be talking about news, about novelties, about many things that come up in real life motorsport, about the mods that we are creating, about our seasons, and about many other things. One of the stellar subjects will probably be physics, because I know Wilkes wants to talk a lot about that, and will be explaining in detail many of the things that he has been doing, because as Jason said, we have a very special product here. We have in-house mods. They are very, very complete. They are very, very well thought. And I think that once people hear what Wilkes has to say about them and what many of us have to say about the details and intricacies in these mods, they will really enjoy them much more. So that's the whole point of this podcast.
Yeah, and I think the key is being informal. If it's stilted and if it's staged, I don't think that's true to who we are, first of all. and I think it's far more interesting if it's candid.
So yeah, this will be a running conversation between us about many subjects. We will have many people who are welcome to be here and talk with us. We will have drivers. We will have physics creators, as we have said. We have people from the outside and all that. And this will be basically like what you're hearing today, basically an informal conversation.
And occasionally a bad joke, or occasionally a bit of banter about things.
Oh yeah, that's also been a running subject here.
May not fit to the conversation going on, but it's going to be certain spin-offs, and that's part of why we enjoy talking to each other, because we get sidetracked and talk about other interesting facts as well.
And one of the fun facts here is that being an international team, because I think, yeah, besides Richard Coxon and David Saber, who are both English, though one being from Sheffield and the other from way down under, I don't think that they look at each other like like from the same place. But let's say the seven of us actually have different nationalities, so that's something that brings up a lot of fun, because when you are talking in your let's say, when you have your own mindset about what your culture is and you start doing a joke or anything like that, it's very funny to see the effect it has on people from other cultures. Because sometimes you make a bad joke and you are just like waiting for people to laugh, and it's like silence. So what happened? They didn't get it.
Or conversely,
you find it funny.
Or conversely, you say something that you don't think is funny, but they find funny suddenly, and you don't get why.
Yeah,
that's the intercultural thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's something we discussed, me and a colleague, actually, just last week, just in general with how languages work as well, that there are idionyms, like sayings and expressions that work in your particular language, but put it in another language, like from Swedish to English, or from Spanish to Swedish, or whatever way you turn it, it wouldn't work in that language.
Yeah, I've often read, like, in certain cultures, like the old light bulb joke, like how many of X does it take to screw in a light bulb? That doesn't translate into other languages too well.
Yeah, in the case of Spanish, we're very well known in the international scene for our dirty talk, so to speak, because it's really funny, because for us the bad mouthing, the words, the coursing and all that, it's like already a style in the language, because we don't really give that much importance to saying words that are normally not exactly well admitted in other languages. We just don't really, I mean, we take it in a very light way. So it's very usual that people in Spain daily talk with all that coursing and all that dirty words and all, well, so for me, at some point, it's always a problem, because I have to exercise a lot of restraint to not continuously be saying words like that. Because because that's how you talk when you're with your group of friends and in a very light ambient,
Yeah, there have been many nights that are late on TeamSpeak where it's like, if we're practicing on the track and there'll be other people on there, the banter in that chat tends to get a bit silly and nutty, especially the later it gets. So we're not gonna work blue as you might say, but it will definitely be. We're gonna try to keep this as loose and informal as possible. And believe it or not, we're out of time already.
Okay.
Well, that was a good first podcast. This is an introduction to tell everybody who we are, and there's other people who unfortunately weren't here, but we're probably going to be hearing from them along the way. But I want to thank the three of you for making the time to join us for this podcast, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again. We're going to try to do this probably once a month, I would think, Alberto.
We will give it a try. I mean,
All right.
because maybe depending on the subjects that come up of the league activities and that, sometimes we might not be doing it once a month, but sometimes I don't know, maybe it happens twice in a single month. We will see. We will go with it as it comes.
All right. Well, then for Alberto and Jonatan and Juha, this is Jason White saying so long. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next podcast.